Imagine for a second that you are not on Earth. You are standing on a landscape so hostile, so utterly devoid of life, that it looks like a photograph beamed back from a Mars rover. The heat hits you first. A physical weight, a wall of 45-degree air that feels like it's being pumped directly from an oven. Beneath your feet, the ground isn't made of dirt or sand. It is a blinding white crust. This is the Dead Sea Valley. It is the lowest point on the face of our planet, resting 400 meters below sea level, and it is a place where nature has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. Here is the hook. In this valley, there is a patch of ground where even bacteria refuse to live. If you pour a gallon of water onto this soil, it won't soak in. It will bead up and roll across the surface like mercury on glass. The earth here has become hydrophobic. It is literally terrified of water. For millennia, this has been known as the Valley of Desolation. Ancient trade routes curved for hundreds of miles just to avoid it. The United Nations doesn't just call it bad land. They classify it as some of the most degraded agricultural territory in the history of the world. And yet, right in the middle of this salt-choked hellscape, a man decided he was going to grow a forest. Not a small garden, not a few desert shrubs, a lush, dripping, food-producing jungle. Everyone told him it was impossible. The scientists, the local farmers, the desert itself, they were all right, because as he would soon find out, the Dead Sea doesn't just kill plants, it humiliates them. Act 2. The Arrogant Pioneer. Enter Geoff Lawton. To look at him, you might see a gardener, but Geoff is something else. An expert in permaculture and a student of agricultural warfare. He didn't come to this project by accident. He had spent years training with the pioneers of Israeli agriculture, men and women who had spent decades figuring out how to survive in a country born in the sand. Israel is a nation that turned the desert into a strategic asset. They invented drip irrigation. They perfected massive-scale desalination. They learned how to heal soil that had been dead since the time of the pharaohs. Geoff Lawton took that Israeli can-do spirit and added a dash of what many called pure arrogance. He looked at the white, cracked earth of the Dead Sea Valley and made a promise that sounded like a fever dream. He said, "If we can fix this land, we can fix any land on earth. There is no such thing as a desert. There is only a lack of imagination." With that, he set up his camp. He wasn't just fighting heat. He was fighting a chemical enemy, sodium chloride. To understand why this project was doomed, you have to understand the white tombstone. In a normal world, rain falls and gravity pulls it down through the soil, washing minerals deep into the earth. But in the Dead Sea, the sun is so brutal that the process works in reverse. The tiny bit of moisture that exists is sucked upward toward the sun. As the water evaporates, it leaves the salt behind. Over thousands of years, this has built up a layer of salt so thick and dense that the soil has turned into something resembling concrete. It isn't soil anymore. It's a grave. ACT 3. The day the desert won. Geoff Lawton's first attempt was executed perfectly according to the textbooks. He selected the toughest species on the planet, coastal trees that could handle salt spray, shrubs that survived in the Sahara, hardy desert perennials. He installed high-tech irrigation. He monitored the soil moisture with the precision of a surgeon. For the first few weeks, it looked like he might win. Tiny green leaves began to poke through the white crust. It was a beautiful sight. But then, the Dead Sea struck back. Within 2 months, every single plant was dead. They didn't just wither, they turned to ash. They turned brown and crumbled when touched. This was the moment of osmotic stress, a scientific nightmare. The concentration of salt in the soil was so high that it created a vacuum effect. Instead of the roots sucking water out of the soil, the salt in the soil sucked the water out of the plants. The trees were literally committing suicide, their own moisture being pulled through their roots and into the parched earth. They died of dehydration while standing in puddles of water. The local farmers stood on the edge of the plot and laughed. They had seen this before. "You can't fight 10,000 years of history with a shovel and some seeds," they told him. The valley always wins. Act 4. The Pivot. Tricking Gravity. This is where most stories would end. A failed experiment, a long drive home, and a lesson learned. But Geoff Lawton did something very Israeli. He refused to accept defeat as a final result. He sat in the blinding sun and asked a question that changed everything. What if the problem isn't the salt? What if the problem is that we are trying to remove it? He realized that removing billions of tons of salt from the valley was impossible. You couldn't dig it out, and you couldn't wash it away. But what if you could hide it? Salt only kills a plant if it is in the root zone, the top few feet of soil. If you could somehow push that salt down, deep into the earth, 5 or 10 feet below the surface where roots never reach, the plants would never know it was there. They would be living on a thin layer of life, floating above a sea of salt. But how do you move salt down in a place where it never rains? How do you trick gravity in a place where the sun pulls everything upward? The answer lay in an ancient, almost embarrassingly simple technology, the swale. A swale is not a ditch. A ditch is designed to move water from point A to point B. A swale is the opposite. It is a long horizontal trench dug perfectly along the contour of the land. It follows the natural curves of the hills like a fingerprint. And most importantly, it is perfectly level. If you put a marble in a swale, it shouldn't roll. Act 5. The Silent Year. Lawton and his team returned with lasers and excavators. They surveyed the land with agonizing precision. They dug thousands of meters of these level trenches. They filled the trenches with organic waste, old logs, mulch, and straw. Then they waited. They waited for the one thing the valley almost never provides: rain. When the rain finally came, a rare torrential desert downpour, the magic of the swale was revealed. In the past, the water would have hit the hard salt crust, picked up speed, and roared down the hills in a flash flood, carrying away whatever little topsoil was left. But now, the water hit the swales. Because the swales were perfectly level, the water couldn't run away. It sat there. It pooled. Thousands of gallons of water stood still in the middle of the desert, and because it had nowhere to go, it did the only thing it could. It sank. It moved vertically, straight down into the soil. As that massive volume of water moved downward, it acted like a giant chemical piston. It grabbed the salt crystals and pushed them deep into the earth. For the first time in history, the salt was moving away from the sun and toward the depths. But the surface still looked dead. For a year, there was nothing. The mulch turned gray. The trenches looked like scars on a corpse. The skepticism reached a fever pitch. People called Lawton a madman who had just dug the world's most expensive empty holes. Act 6. The Green Fire. Then, one morning, a worker walking the site stopped dead in his tracks. He knelt down and pointed at a tiny microscopic speck of green. It was a weed. A weed is usually a gardener's enemy, but in the Dead Sea Valley, a weed is a miracle. It meant the salt was gone from the surface. It meant the white tombstone had been cracked. What happened next was like a slow-motion explosion. That one weed turned into 10. 10 turned into 100. Within months, the swales were overflowing with life. But it wasn't just about the water. The logs Lawton had buried in the trenches had started to rot, creating a microscopic universe of fungi and bacteria. This is the secret no one talks about. Dead soil doesn't just need water, it needs a pulse. The decaying wood acted like a sponge, holding onto the moisture from that one rainstorm for months, even through the 45-degree heat of the summer. Below the ground, a living soil had been born. Suddenly, the impossible trees weren't dying. They were thriving. Their roots found the fresh water held in the buried logs and stayed safely above the buried salt. Fig trees, pomegranate trees, and guava trees began to rise out of the salt crust. Melons and pumpkins crawled across the ground that used to burn the skin off a man's feet. AC 7. The world is watching. Today, Geoff Lawton's plot is a vibrant green lung in the middle of a white desert. It is a functioning, self-sustaining food forest. It produces its own shade, which lowers the local temperature by several degrees. It produces its own mulch, which builds new soil every year. The desert didn't win. The arrogance of the man with the swale did. But the story doesn't end with a few trees. This project proved that we have the technology to re-green the entire planet. If we can do this in the salt-choked pits of the Dead Sea, we can do it in the sub-Saharan Sahel. We can do it in the dust bowls of the American West. We can do it anywhere. But there is one final piece of the puzzle. To make a forest truly permanent, you need more than just water and swales. You need to understand the invisible network, the way the soil breathes, communicates, and thinks. Geoff Lawton discovered something in that valley that he didn't expect. Something about the way bacteria and fungi interact with salt that could change global science forever. But to see that, we have to go deeper, into the dark, wet world beneath the roots.